Ian Valliere,
Good to see you.
thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me,
your
guys. Yeah.
Should I say salut, or are you from the French part or the English part?
I'm from the English part. My heritage, like my last name, Valliere, is French, but there's not much French in my family. So, I mean, I guess you could say it, but no, I'm English speaking only.
But I think Antoine, he's
from the French side. Yeah,
speaking,
he's from
right?
Quebec, so the French part of Canada. So I'm just in Ontario, like the English side of Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, my French is not as good as English.
Yours might be better than mine, I'm sure. So I'm very limited in my French. We learn it in school growing up, but that's 20 years ago. It's been long forgotten by now. So
Yeah, same with me.
yeah. Yeah.
So are you retired or on standby? Okay, enough.
No, I mean, look, I love bodybuilding. I would love to be able to get back on a bodybuilding stage. I don't think, when I say that being very realistic of that, would I ever do it trying to be more than I've been in the past? No. Do I think that I'm going to go and place 7th or higher at the Olympia or continue to win pro shows at the rate that I was? Absolutely not. And I would set my expectations accordingly. If I was to compete again, which I would love to, it would be just because I love bodybuilding. I enjoy being on stage with my peers and the guys that I respect and enjoy training with, because I love the process of a prep. I love challenging myself and I enjoy that. But my years of trying to be the best bodybuilder in the world are definitely behind me,
So why that? How did you make this decision?
To maybe get back on stage?
No, this decision to retire. You say you still love it.
Yeah.
You still train. You still love to compete.
Sure.
So why did you stop?
Because at the time of when I retired, I didn't. When I retired at the time, I didn't love it like I did now. But I think that, look, if I'd done things properly and if I had the foresight and, that I do now, or the hindsight, foresight, whatever it is, I probably wouldn't have retired. I would have just taken time, I would have just, hey, I'm taking a year off, or just indefinite. I'm just not going to compete for a while and just let my body and my mind kind of take the time it needed to get myself to maybe where I am now, or maybe I would have realized in time that's never coming back for me. I don't ever want to bodybuild or, test myself in that way again. But I think I needed that time away from the stage. I think I'd been competing every single year for 15 years. And I think I was just really eager for, a change of pace, a break. And I think what I started bodybuilding for was because I just love training. I'm one of those guys that my passion for bodybuilding is completely rooted in a love for the training. And I think near the end of my career, I didn't love training. Going to the gym now felt like a job. It felt like a burden. I didn't look forward to it. And when I got to that point, I was kind of like, well, what am I doing this for? If what I started it for was because I love training, I've accomplished more than I ever want to accomplish. So if I'm not doing it because I love it anymore, maybe it's time to find something else that I love and move on to a new passion. And I've found other things that I'm passionate about in my life in the meantime. But bodybuilding is still home to me in a way, And I think I've scratched the itch in terms of what I want to accomplish in bodybuilding. But I still enjoy the challenge and I'm still young and healthy. And there's a part of me that is yeah, maybe I could still do a couple more of those. I haven't made anything. I'm not decided. Maybe I won't, maybe I will. I'm not really sure. But in my heart, I'm like, you know what? I could give another crack at it, Yeah.
So maybe go a little deeper. How did it feel? Because I'm retired too, kind of. It's been 4 years since I did my last show.
Yeah.
And you already mentioned the thing I miss the most is not actually looking like that.
Yeah.
But the training.
Yeah.
The feeling and the process, getting better day by day.
That's exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, and I'm the exact same way. I mean, you said it perfectly. It's, it's the getting better every day and challenging yourself to manipulate your body to be better through the training, through the nutrition. It's not because I love looking shredded and peeled, and the getting on stage is very secondary to all of that. It's the challenge of the process that's very exciting and very fulfilling, It's that feeling of accomplishment when you really pushed yourself and tested yourself, and then what that yields at the end is great and it's awesome. But it's the challenge and that kind of road along the way, which is what really give me peace and fulfillment,
Yeah. And would you say one thing is you don't have to make many decisions because there's a clear goal. There's 6 months.
Yeah.
And you always know what to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing with bodybuilding. It's it's extremely difficult, but it's incredibly simple. you know, like it's one of the hardest things ever in terms of, you know, the monotony of it and to actually train hard and, you know, following a diet perfectly and all these things and doing it over years. You know, it's easy to prep, you know, and diet well for a month, 2 months, whatever. But then when you do that consistently for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, train hard all that time, you know, really be on the ball all that time. That's what's difficult. But like it's bodybuilding, it says like in its core and its semblance is extremely simple. You know, it's very simple, especially, you know, you're working with a coach, you follow a plan. It's just like there's a routine and like I said, a monotony to it that is very enjoyable, even though you kind of use the word monotony in a negative semblance. It's like I'm using it kind of in a positive in this light, you know? Yeah.
And talking about retiring, you're very close to Chris.
Yeah.
Maybe what's your view on him retiring?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Chris made the right decision for Chris. You know, I think he accomplished more than 99.999% of people will ever accomplish in this industry. And not even just from a competitive standpoint, from a career trajectory standpoint, from an impact, influence standpoint. You know, I think he's kind of done it all and done it, not just all of it, he's done it all and better than almost everyone ever, you know? So, you know, I think for him, you know, and I don't want to speak for him, but I think, you know, you get to a point where you're like, what am I doing this for anymore? You know, and I think he felt fulfilled in like what his journey was. And, you know, I think at the end he was able to like find a place of like peace of like, I'm very happy with what I've accomplished. You know, I enjoyed this process, but like I'm ready to move on to like the next steps of my life, you know? So, you know, because it's one of those things with bodybuilding, it's like you can forever chase that like proverbial white rabbit, you know? It's like you're always chasing something. And for him, it's like, where does that end? Like you could get, you know, you get 6, well, why not 7? Well, you have 7, why not 8, you know? And like, where do you end that? And I think that has to be like something in your inner dialogue of like, okay, like, you know, am I happy with what I've accomplished? You know, am I ready to like move on to something different and kind of have a different impact in people's lives or, you know, and start on my own family and move on to different things, which, you know, I think is never an easy decision as a bodybuilder, you know, like so much of our identity is wrapped up into it. But I think for him, he made the right decision for him, you know?
And I also asked Chris this question. Looking back now that Urs went to open bodybuilding, did pretty good.
Great,
I mean, we'll see how he does on the Olympia stage. But what's your opinion on Chris if he had tried to win the Open Olympia? Would that have been maybe a better career path for him?
I don't think it would have been a better career path. I think in terms of where he ended up now, he actually calculated it perfectly. I think.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah, when he turned pro in bodybuilding, you know, because he did turn pro as a bodybuilder. Classic just came out, so he was like right in that first wave of classic guys in a division that was kind of looking for like a leader, you know. And you know, you had the first couple winners, but then there was really someone that I think the fans and the athletes and people could like connect with on like a personal level. And I think Chris kind of like stepped into those shoes like right at the right time when this division was developing. And a division that's obviously very popular, you know, something that's focused heavily on aesthetics and not quite as much on the size and kind of filling this void, you know, between men's physique and bodybuilding. And, you know, we know how popular some of those physiques from the 90s, you know, the Flex Wheeler and these, you know, more like streamlined, you know, aesthetic physiques are. And I think he came in and filled that void in that class right at the right time. And he was, you know, a good role model. He was authentic, you know, and I think it was kind of like all the stars aligned to create the perfect champion for a new division. And, you know, so in the open, look, do I think Chris could have been a very successful open bodybuilder? Absolutely. You know, I think he could have done great, but do I think that he would have reached the level of stardom that he did because of Classic or with Classic? I don't think would have happened, you know? So look, I would have loved to see Chris do more open shows. I mean, I would have loved to compete against Chris, you know? Maybe I wouldn't, actually, I don't know. Because I beat him as an amateur, so maybe if I competed as a pro, he would have beat me, so I'll just take that win I have and I'll just ride that off into the sunset, you know? But I mean, look, as a fan of bodybuilding, we all want to see these guys challenge themselves in a different way. You know, like we've seen Urs do Classic. Now it's like, okay, we want to see them, you know, without the confines of the weight cap and see what their physiques are capable of. It's very exciting as someone that's a fan of bodybuilding, you know? So, you know, we got a little taste of it with Chris in Prague, but it wasn't really because like he had just done Classic 4 weeks before, you know? So it wasn't like a true testament of what he could have accomplished in the open was. But even with that, we saw, I mean, Martin had just come fourth at the Olympia. and you can make a very strong case for, him and Chris were very close there, So, I mean, right there, that's the 4th place guy at the Olympia, and Chris was right on his heels. So, you can make an argument for, even in his current form, he's a top 6 Olympia guy right there, So, it creates a bit of like questions and mystery behind that whole storyline, which unfortunately I don't think we'll ever find out, but it would have definitely been great to see him, do more open shows for sure. Yeah.
So how do you see the future of classic physique now that 2 of the main characters are gone?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. This year is going to be like a very turning point in a lot of things. There's a lot of guys that I think are, there's guys like Ramon that have been there kind of nipping at Chris's heels for years. There's guys like Mike that was close behind him last year. You have a lot of new younger guys like Jose Man, like these guys kind of coming up as well. Terrence, first Olympia in a while, coming back and, after a really good showing earlier in the year. So I think there's, and guys like Logan, really popular right now. So I think there's a lot of good storylines in that. So, and that division now after Chris left is looking for that new champion to kind of continue that, carrying that torch in that division. So it's going to be interesting. I'm very excited to watch this Olympia and see who wins, Yeah.
So what about your open? What's your top 5 pick?
I've thought about this so much, leading up to this Olympia, and I've been asked the question many times, and I have never had as hard of a time answering the question as I do this year. Usually I can, even if I'm not 100% sure, I got a decent idea of where at least I think. I'm not always right. I could say who I think and it's wrong, but I have a strong feeling. I don't have any damn feeling. I think Hottie, Samson, Nick, Derek, I think any 4 of those guys are completely capable of winning this Olympia. I'm pretty sure, if I was going to pick a top 4, I would always pick those as being your top 4. I don't think there's anyone that really will change that being your top 4. But it's tough, man, because you had Samson win, then Samson lose to Derek, then Derek almost lose to Nick, controversial win over Nick in Pittsburgh, so it's, those 3 guys. And then Hottie, obviously you can never count out Hottie. I mean, Hottie's always right there, consistent, second last year, beat Derek. He's always right at the top there, kind of, jockeying for that position. We know he's such a fierce competitor. So I think he's always someone you can't count out. But if I'm gun to my head right now, I had to make predictions, I'd probably say Samson, Nick, Hottie, Derek, which is even when I say that, putting Derek in 4th to me, I'm there's no way that's going to happen. It's there's no way Derek's going to be 4th place. But I also just I don't know where to place these guys in this lineup. I think Nick is going to be so impressive from a muscularity standpoint. Now, I know he's very hungry after missing the last 2 Olympias. I expect to see a spectacular Nick. I know, we're going to see definitely an improved version of Samson from a conditioning standpoint. And we'll see if that helps or hurts him. Is it going to help him that he'll be leaner, or is it going to hurt him that he's going to be maybe a little downsized, and then some of these guys will overpower him with muscularity now? And then, obviously Derek and Hottie are guys that are always super sharp and really dangerous in every aspect, right? So it's a tough one to predict for sure. Yeah.
So you still need number 5.
And number 5, I'll go Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think for 5, I have between Andrew, Martin, and probably Baruz. Mm-hmm. I think are probably the guys that are fighting for 5, 6, 7. But yeah, actually, I'll change that. I've seen some more of Martin. I'm going to put Martin in 5. My predictions on our podcast, I put Andrew 5. But with speaking with Stefan and more I've seen, my confidence in Martin is growing.
Martin is way better than last year.
Yeah. So my confidence in Martin is growing. So I'll put Martin 5th. But even last year, we saw Martin, really close behind Derek. So, if any of the, maybe I'll retract that statement. If anyone is going to be, if Martin's at his best and he's improved and one of those top 4 guys slips up a little, I think that he's that guy that could potentially jump into that top 4. Yeah.
So what's next for you? How's life now? You're obviously still involved in bodybuilding.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, my life is fairly unchanged. I kind of do the same things. I still train. I still eat like a bodybuilder. I still, if anything now, since I've retired, I partake in more of these events now because I'm like less restrictive on myself. You know how it is when you're competing. You say no to a lot of things because it's very like you need to be in your bubble and focusing on your training and your nutrition and stuff like that. So I actually travel and do a lot more events now that I am retired. So yeah, that's kind of what takes up most of my time,
So you're full-time involved in bodybuilding?
Yeah. I work with a number of different brands, so still fully involved in that. Spend time with my wife, drive motorcycles, ride snowboard in the winter and enjoy the Canadian snow. And, that's kind of what my life is. I mean, it's still very bodybuilding centric, so yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So all the best.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time.
Yes. Thank you guys. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
See you again.
Yeah. Awesome.